5 underwater cities are sitting on the ocean floor right now. Not in legend, not in theory. They are mapped, measured, and confirmed by peer-reviewed science through underwater archaeology. And every single one of them was found by someone who was looking for something else entirely. We have 5 discoveries ahead of us, from Egypt to India, and by city number 4, we will reach the only one on this list that a government drowned on purpose. The question is why nobody went looking for it for 42 years. Number 1. Thonis-Heracleion, Egypt. In 1996, a French underwater archaeologist named Goddio sailed into Aboukir Bay with one mission. He wanted to finish mapping the wreck of l'Orient, Napoleon's 120-gun flagship, which blew up during the Battle of the Nile on August 1, 1798, reportedly with 5 million francs in stolen Maltese gold still on board. A diver named Jacques Dumas had located the wreck in 1983 at 12 meters deep, but Dumas died in 1985, and no one continued the work. Goddio's team from the Institut Européen d'Archéologie Sous-Marine spent 3 years dragging magnetometers and sub-bottom profilers across the bay, building an electronic grid to locate every French warship from that battle. They found the anchor chains of 6 additional ships of the line. They mapped the debris pattern from 2 separate explosions aboard l'Orient. And then the magnetometer started returning anomalies that were too old to be French. They detected massive stone signatures 6.5 kilometers offshore, buried under 3 meters of compacted clay, sitting in 10 meters of water. In the year 2000, Goddio's team raised a black granite stele nearly 2 meters tall, weighing 1.664 tons. It was carved with 14 columns of hieroglyphs commissioned by Pharaoh Nectanebo I around 380 BCE. Column 13 named the city where the stele was to stand, Thonis. That single word ended a debate that had run since antiquity. The Greek name Heracleion and the Egyptian name Thonis referred to the same city. It had been the customs gateway for every Greek ship entering Egypt. In 26 years of excavation since then, Goddio's team has catalogued 64 ancient ships and over 700 stone anchors in the harbor basins. That is the largest concentration of ancient vessels ever recorded at one site. They raised a 5.4-meter red granite colossus of Hapi, the god of the Nile flood. It is the largest known statue of an Egyptian deity. It now stands in the Grand Hall of the Grand Egyptian Museum at Giza, which opened in November 2025. And the reason the city ended up on the seafloor is the reason most documentaries get it wrong. Thonis-Heracleion did not sink in one catastrophic night. A 2024 study by Brocard, Goiran, and Robinson, published through CNRS editions, describes a multi-phase collapse stretched across 1,000 years. The city sat on water-saturated Nile Delta clay with almost no shear strength. When earthquakes hit, that clay liquefied. Temples did not topple sideways. They sank straight down. One major liquefaction event in the 2nd century BCE crushed the Temple of Amun under its own blocks. A second event in the 8th century finished the city off. After 26 years of work, Goddio estimates that only about 5% of Thonis-Heracleion has been excavated. His own words, "We will probably have to continue working for the next 200 years for this city to be fully revealed." That was number 1. Number 2 takes us from the Egyptian coast to the Roman Empire's most notorious party destination. Number 2, Baiae, Italy. In January 1969, a winter storm off the coast of Naples scoured the seabed at Punta Epitafio, 7 meters below the surface. When the sediment cleared, white marble fragments were lying exposed on the ocean floor. Local divers pulled up 2 statues, the Soprintendenza di Napoli identified them as Imperial Roman sculpture from a Julio-Claudian sanctuary. That accidental exposure triggered the first systematic underwater excavation of Baiae in 1980, and what they found was an entire imperial dining room built by Emperor Claudius in the 1st century, complete with an apse, 4-wall niches, a central pool, and a sculptural group depicting Odysseus offering wine to the Cyclops. Baiae was the most exclusive resort in the Roman world. Julius Caesar owned a villa there. Cicero had a summer house. Caligula built a 3 Roman-mile pontoon bridge of ships across the bay in 39 CE, just to prove he could. Nero staged banquets that lasted days. In 59 CE, Nero tried to murder his mother Agrippina by staging a fake shipwreck off the Baiae coast. She survived the boat. He sent soldiers to finish the job on shore. Seneca called the city a vortex of luxury and a harbor of vice. In Latin, Deversorium Vitiorum. The reason it all ended up underwater has nothing to do with an earthquake or eruption. Baiae sits inside the Campi Flegrei caldera, a 15,000-year-old volcanic collapse structure. Beneath the surface, a magma chamber inflates and deflates over centuries, pushing the ground up or pulling it down. The process is called bradyseism, from the Greek word for slow. The Roman coastline at Baiae now sits roughly 10 meters below modern sea level. It took over 1,000 years of gradual sinking, not a single disaster. The columns of the Macellum at nearby Pozzuoli have marine bivalve borings, reaching 7 meters up their shafts, recording exactly how far the ground sank before rising again. Today, the Parco Sommerso di Baia is one of the first underwater archaeological parks in the Mediterranean, established in 2002. Divers can swim over polychrome mosaic floors at 5 to 6 meters, marble columns of Hadrianic villas at 8 meters, and the replica statues now placed back in the Claudian Nymphaeum at the exact positions where the originals once stood. And that story had a parallel that almost nobody covers. 7 years before the storm exposed the underwater city, a British amateur archaeologist named Robert Paget crawled into a blocked tunnel behind the Baiae bathhouses in 1962. With his American collaborator Keith Jones, he cleared 250 meters of descending passage, 53 centimeters wide, lined with over 100 oil lamp niches, ending at an underground river fed by boiling sulfur springs at 49 degrees Celsius. Paget called it the River Styx. He published his findings in the papers of the British School at Rome in 1967, arguing it was a ritual entrance to the underworld, the real-life model for Aeneas's descent in Virgil's Aeneid. He announced the discovery on November 22, 1963. The same day, President Kennedy was assassinated. Almost nobody noticed. That was number 2. Number 3 is the only city on this list that was destroyed in under 20 minutes. Port Royal, Jamaica. On June 7, 1692, at approximately 11:43 in the morning, a magnitude 7.5 earthquake hit the sand spit where Port Royal stood. The city sat on 20 meters of water-saturated sand, with the water table less than 1 meter below the street. When the shaking started, that sand liquefied. Eyewitnesses described the ground rising like waves of the sea, swallowing people to the waist, then resealing around their bodies. 2/3 of the city, roughly 33 acres, slid into Kingston Harbor in under 17 minutes. 2,000 people died instantly. Another 3,000 died from disease in the following weeks. If you are enjoying this journey, a quick tap on the like button and the subscribe button helps this channel bring more stories like this. It costs nothing, and it means everything. The reason we know the exact minute is a brass pocket watch found in 1959 by Edwin Link aboard his vessel Sea Diver. The watch was made around 1686 in Amsterdam by a French Huguenot watchmaker named Paul Blondel. Its hands had rusted frozen at 1143. Many documentaries misattribute the watch to someone named Paulet or Peewit, and they often give the recovery year as 1969. The maker was Paul Blondel. The correct recovery year is 1959. Between 1981 and 1990, Dr. Donnie Hamilton from the Nautical Archaeology program at Texas A&M University ran the most extensive controlled excavation of Port Royal's submerged quarter. Working along Lime Street at its intersections with Queen and High Streets, Hamilton's team excavated 8 buildings in situ. They found cast iron skillets still in hearths, with charred wood fused to their surfaces. They found stacks of 25 pewter plates in a cupboard under a staircase. They found Chinese porcelain guardian lion figurines that prove the Manila galleon trade reached Jamaica. They found a brass cooking pot containing the bones of a sea turtle, mid-meal, inside what property records identify as James Littleton's Tavern. And they found a complete 2-seat brick privy, still intact 300 years later. Hamilton published his principal findings in the International Journal of Nautical Archaeology in 1984. His estimate was that less than 5% of the submerged city has been scientifically excavated. The rest sits untouched beneath Kingston Harbor. In July 2025, Port Royal was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, Jamaica's second World Heritage Site. The evaluation language called the underwater sections exceptionally well preserved under layers of sediments. One resident survived in a way that sounds impossible. Louis Galdi, a French Huguenot merchant from Montpellier, was swallowed into the ground by the liquefaction, ejected by a subsequent aftershock into the harbor, swam until a boat picked him up, and lived another 47 years. His tombstone in the cemetery of St. Peter's Anglican Church still tells the whole story. That was number 3. Number 4 is the strangest entry on this list, because this city was not lost. It was erased. Number 4. Shi Cheng, the Lion City, China. In 1959, the Chinese government flooded an entire valley in Zhejiang province to build the Xin'an River hydroelectric station. Approximately 290,000 people were relocated. 2 county seats, Shi Cheng and Haicheng, dozens of villages, and tens of thousands of acres of farmland disappeared beneath the rising water. The resulting reservoir, Qiandao Lake, holds over 1,000 islands across 573 square kilometers. And then, everyone forgot about the cities underneath. For 42 years, nobody went down to check if anything was left. In 2001, a local tourism official named Qiu Feng called the Beijing Dragon Diving Club to brainstorm ways to attract visitors to the lake. Someone suggested the divers go see if the old cities had survived. On September 18, 2001, the team made their first descent. Within minutes, they found the outer city wall. They pulled up a brick to prove it. What they found beneath 40 meters of fresh water defied every expectation. 265 stone archways, 5 city gates instead of the traditional 4, carved guardian lions, dragon and phoenix relief panels, inscriptions dated to 1777, the 42nd year of the Qianlong reign, intact wooden beams still attached to stone walls by iron pegs, paved stone streets in a grid pattern. The city was virtually undamaged. The preservation is almost supernatural, and it has a scientific explanation. Qiandao Lake water is classified as Class 1 drinking water in China. It is the source for Nongfu Spring, one of the country's largest bottled water brands. At 40 meters depth, the water is roughly 10 degrees Celsius, almost oxygen-free, and biologically inert. No ultraviolet light, no wind, no rain, no freeze-thaw cycles. The four processes that destroy land-based stone monuments simply do not exist down there. And this is where most documentaries make their biggest error. The city is commonly described as 1,400 years old. Shi Cheng was founded as a county seat in 621 CE during the Tang dynasty. That part is accurate. But the buildings, the gates, the archways, the lion carvings that divers actually see are overwhelmingly Ming and Qing dynasty construction, 400 to 600 years old when they were flooded. The site is ancient. The surviving architecture is not. One more correction. The magazine that made Shi Cheng globally famous in 2011 was Chinese National Geography, a separate publication from the American National Geographic. The photographer was Wu Lixin. National Geographic in the United States only ran a secondary feature in 2014 using existing imagery. That was number 4. And the final city is the one that refuses to settle the argument it started. Number 5. Dwarka, India. In 1979, an archaeologist named S.R. Rao was repairing the Dwarkadish temple in Gujarat when he had to demolish a modern building blocking the work. At 30 feet depth, he found the remains of a 9th century Vishnu temple. He kept digging. Beneath that, he found an earlier temple. Beneath that, pottery. He sent the pottery to the Physical Research Laboratory in Ahmedabad for thermoluminescence dating. The result came back 1528 BCE. That discovery launched India's first offshore marine archaeology program. Between 1983 and 1990, Rao led 12 underwater expeditions for the National Institute of Oceanography in Goa. His team documented L-shaped dressed stone blocks measuring 95 by 55 by 25 centimeters at depths of 3 to 12 meters off the coast. Semicircular stone structures, circular bastions 2 meters in diameter, and hundreds of triangular 3-holed stone anchors, the same type found at Bronze Age Ugarit in Syria and on the coast of Cyprus, suggesting maritime contact between late Harappan Gujarat and the eastern Mediterranean over 3,500 years ago. These anchor finds represent some of the earliest evidence of late Bronze Age trade networks connecting the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean world. The Mahabharata describes a city called Dwarka that the ocean swallowed after the death of Lord Krishna. The Mausala Parva, Book 16, records that the sea rushed into the city, it coursed through the streets, and in a matter of moments, it was all over. Whether this passage reflects an actual coastal event remains one of the most contested questions in South Asian archaeology. And this is where we need to separate what the data supports from what it does not. In 2002, the National Institute of Ocean Technology conducted a sonar survey in the Gulf of Kampat, about 120 kilometers south of Dwarka, and announced the discovery of an underwater city that was 9,500 years old. That claim went global. The BBC ran it as headline news. The peer-reviewed response was devastating. The artifacts had been recovered by dredging, not by controlled excavation, so they could not be tied to the sonar anomalies. The dated wood was likely driftwood from ancient river channels. Multiple archaeologists, including D.P. Agrawal, the founder of radiocarbon dating facilities in India, called the methodology fundamentally flawed. As of 2026, the Gulf of Kampat claim is not accepted by mainstream archaeology. Dwarka itself, the port site documented by S.R. Rao, remains legitimate. But the two are constantly conflated. In February 2025, the Archaeological Survey of India revived its underwater archaeology wing and relaunched fieldwork at Dwarka, the first new campaign in nearly 2 decades. The team is running optically stimulated luminescence dating, photogrammetric mapping, and sediment coring across the offshore site. A provisional late Harappan date of roughly 1500 BCE is the current working hypothesis, consistent with what Rao found 40 years ago. This work continues a tradition that began with pioneers like George Bass, who founded modern underwater archaeology in the 1960s with his excavation of Bronze Age shipwrecks off the Turkish coast. The field has evolved from treasure hunting to rigorous scientific methodology, now protected under frameworks like the UNESCO Convention on Underwater Cultural Heritage, adopted in 2001 to safeguard submerged archaeological sites worldwide. When a pocket watch can freeze the exact minute a city dies, when a winter storm can uncover a Roman emperor's private dining room, when a diver looking for a tourism idea finds a city nobody checked on for 42 years, the pattern is not coincidence. The ocean does not destroy. It archives. And the only thing standing between us and the next discovery is the assumption that we have already found everything. 5 underwater cities, 5 accidents, and by the best estimates of the archaeologists working these sites, less than 10% of what lies beneath these waters has been brought into the light through underwater archaeology.